You are probably responsible for winning the business, for delivering the work, for managing the people doing it, for keeping an eye on the money, and at some point this week, for a decision that no one else in your business feels authorized to make. This is not a description of someone who has too much on their plate. That is a description of a specific type of business and a specific type of structure. And in this video, I am going to explain exactly what that structure is, what it produces, and why naming it matters. In the last video in this series, I covered the definition of an SME, what the term actually means by official UK and EU classification, and why it matters that we use a shared definition rather than a loose one. If you've not seen that video, it is worth watching first, not because this one depends on it, but because the two form a logical sequence. And SME is the category, founder-led is the operating condition that most SMEs in the early to mid-growth stage share. Those are related but different things, and the distinction matters. So what does founder-led actually mean? It is used often in business journalism, in investor conversations, in advisory circles, but it is rarely defined with any precision. Here is what it means structurally. In a founder-led business, the founder is the primary decision-making node. Significant decisions, strategic, commercial, operational, route through one person. That person built the business. That person understands it more completely than anyone else. In that person's judgment, energy, and relationships are what the business runs on. This is not a description of leadership style. It is a description of organizational architecture. Founder-led is not about how much the founder cares or how involved they want to be. It is about how the business is actually structured, where authority lives, where decisions sit, and where the load falls. Here is what that structure actually looks like in practice. The founder is typically the organization's primary commercial relationship. They won the first clients. Their name and reputation carried the early sales. Many of the best client relationships are still effectively personal ones with the founder. The founder is usually the primary risk holder, legally, financially, reputationally. They signed the lease, the bank facility, the first contracts. If something goes significantly wrong, it is ultimately their problem. And the founder is the primary decision-making authority, not necessarily because they want to be, but because the business has not yet built the structures that would allow decisions to be made more confidently without them. Now, most founders already know this about themselves. They feel it every day. What they may not have considered is that these three roles create a specific kind of structural tension. And that tension does not resolve by working harder. It's resolved by changing the structure. When a founder-led business starts to grow, the symptoms of that structure become more visible. Not because something has gone wrong, because the structure is being asked to carry more weight than it was designed for. Here is what those symptoms look like. Decisions accumulated at the top. Things wait. Not because people are idle, but because people do not feel authorized to move without the founder's sign-off. The queue for this founder's attention is longer than it used to be, and it is growing. Projects run on founder energy. When the founder is in the room, things move. When they're not, things slow. The delivery capability of the business is tied to the founder's availability in a way that does not scale. Commercial relationships remain personal. The best clients still call the founder directly. New clients are reassured by the founder's involvement. Handing those relationships over feels like a risk because structurally it may be. Cash flow requires founder attention, not just awareness. Active management. The founder is often the one who knows where the gaps are, who is late paying, what needs to move to make the month work. These are not failures, they are outputs. They are what founder-led structures produces when it is under growth pressure. I want to be direct about something. The pattern I have just described is not a sign that a founder is doing wrong. Research consistently shows that managing growth is the single most commonly cited challenge among business founders. Around 1 in 3 founders identifies it as their primary difficulty. Cash flow is cited almost as frequently. These are not coincidences, they are structural outputs. A business that is growing is making more demands on the same decision-making node, the same risk holder, the same commercial relationships. Growth is not the problem. Growth is the pressure that reveals the limits of the current structure. The founders who experience the most acute version of this are often the most capable ones. They built something real. They won real clients. They delivered real work. The structure they built was appropriate for the stage the business was at. The difficulty is not that they built something wrong. The difficulty is that the business outgrew the structure and no one told them what that would feel like or what to do about it. Here is the shift that matters. When a founder is asking, why can I not keep up with my own business, they are asking a personal question, and personal questions tend to produce personal answers. Work harder, get better at time management, hire someone, take things off your plate. These are not wrong answers, but they are incomplete ones because they treat the symptom without addressing the structure. When a founder asks instead, what does this structure require in order to function at this scale? They are asking a structural question, and structural questions produce structural answers. Where are decisions currently concentrated, and which of those could be made confidently by someone else with the right information and authority? Which commercial relationships are genuinely dependent on the founder, and which could be transitioned without meaningful risk to the client relationship? Does the business need to know, track, and communicate in order to operate without the founder holding everything in their head? These are the questions that operational integrity is built on, and they are only accessible once the founder recognizes the structure they are operating in. To summarize what we have covered, founder-led is a structural description, not a leadership style. It means the founder is the primary decision node, the primary risk holder, and the primary commercial relationship simultaneously. The symptoms that founder-led businesses experience under growth pressure include decision bottlenecks, delivery tied to founder availability, cash requiring active management. These are all structural outputs, not personal failures. And the shift from personal framing to structural framing is the first operational move. It makes the right question visible. And a final word, what I mean by operational integrity. The word integrity here means structural load-bearing growth, the ability to hold form under pressure, building the foundation that allows a business to grow without collapsing under its own weight. And in the next video in this series, I'm going to look at what value proposition actually is operationally and not as a marketing exercise, what it costs to leave it undefined. If you are building a business that you intend to scale, and that is where the practical work will begin. You can also find more on this at turnercore.my.canva.site. The link is below.